Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. His skin was pale, his eye was odd. He shaved the faces of gentlemen, who never thereafter were heard from again. He trod a path that few have trod, did Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. Hey guys, and welcome to Movie Mumbles, where the mumbles have movers and the movers have mumbles. I'm Roy and Womble, and this is my Royce Johnson. Say hi, Roy.
Wait, so it's not Sweeney Street, right?
No, God damn it. It's Fleet Street.
I know.
Today we're looking deep into Fleet Street, devouring one of Mrs. Lovett's meat pies with the 2007 Oscar-winning hit Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
Well, I want an Oscar.
We'll be taking...
Well, I want an Oscar for, like, art direction.
We'll be talking
so
in depth.
Not exactly...
Hey, listen, I'm beefing this up, because I like Sweeney Todd, alright?
Okay, fine, whatever.
We will be talking in depth about the film and picking it apart, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it. There will be spoilers ahead. You have been warned.
Exactoroonie. Let me just speak a bit about it. I am a big Tim Burton fan. I like a lot of his movies. Recently, he's had a bit of a lackluster streak, but... in general, he's had a great filmography, but this was one of the Tim Burton films I have not seen, and I was kind of interested in seeing it. I will admit, I'm not familiar with the musical or the movie. I didn't know much about it prior to watching it, so it was definitely an interesting experience. I know Womble's like a huge fan of both of the musical and the movie, so he's much more prevalent in the source material. So I
prefer the musical way more than I do the movie. I like the movie, but I love the musical. Like, I can go and watch the musical as a guilty pleasure every Halloween because it's just a great thing to go. You get laughter, you get sadness, and it's just a really great experience to be doing. But yeah, I do like the film.
So what exactly is the plot of this movie?
So effectively, Sweeney. Benjamin Barker, who, sorry, pardon me for putting down my glass of beer. Benjamin Barker is a barber. 15 years ago, he had a barber and his wife, and she was beautiful, you see?
Poor thing.
Poor thing. Well, poor thing. Yeah, okay. Then an evil, despicable judge comes along, lusts after his wife, and effectively convicts him of something that a crime that he didn't commit, sends him off to Australia, and he goes and lives there. 15 years later, he comes back a changed man. He comes back Sweeney Todd. He is no longer Benjamin Barker, and he is out for revenge. He then goes back to his old hole where he lived, and finds Mrs. Lovett, who is a pie shop owner, and who sells bad pies and just is having a really bad time.
The worst pies in London.
The worst pies in London. I know, we could just... You know what? For me, I could just list all of the songs in this and I get really excited because it's like the songs... the whole musical as a whole just kind of build up really well.
It was Stephen Sondheim that did the musical, right? He's one of the big... musical guys. Like, one of the big names.
Yeah, well, it's actually based on a real person. Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, he was a serial killer who killed about 3 or 4 different people.
Really?
And he did have a wife, and he did have a child, and he also killed the wife and the child as well, and he went a little bit insane. Now, whether or not there was a Mrs. Lovett, that's debatable. We don't actually know, because Victorian London there wasn't very much crime records at the time, so it's a bit hard to understand, but there was a Sweeney Todd. The papers ran news about him. It's very much Jack the Ripper kind of fable kind of thing. It's like it's turned into more than what it was because the newspapers would just build it up.
Yeah, people are fascinated by serial killers even today.
And so they made a musical about it because it's
because why not?
It was why not? it's a great idea. Like 1979 comes along and they make a musical and they put it on the West End, and then they move it over to New York. It wins Tony Awards. It does really well, and it gets a cult following.
And then the movie came along. Tim Burton is a big fan of the source material, from what I've heard. and
Yes.
he tried to faithfully adapt this play. I'm curious on how you think the play faithfully adapts it. I know there were some changes made. For example, I knew that Johnny Depp is not... I knew in the musical, Sweeney Todd is actually a baritone part, and
Yes.
Johnny Depp is not a baritone singer, so that's...
No.
So that was that. Anything else? Any other differences that should be noted?
Well, they slightly change... actually, the biggest change that they take out is the Ballad of Sweeney Todd, which is the little intro that I did right at the beginning.
So that was the song that plays during the opening credits, but it's like an instrumental.
Yeah, that gets turned into an instrumental. But in the actual musical, you have Sweeney Todd singing that, and then the chorus come in, and it's a very chilling experience, and it effectively tells the backstory of Sweeney Todd in those, and it effectively tells you what's going to happen as well. So it kind of sets the scene, and there's also snippets of that go throughout the stage play or the musical. Other differences lie in the wife, the one that is the homeless woman. She's actually a prostitute in the musical, but it's never actually established in Sweeney Todd.
Does she essentially have the same role, kind of?
Yeah, it is the same role, and she has the same songs, but pretty much 90% of the musical has been lifted up, put onto the onto this, and that's it. That's what you get. All the dialogue is pretty much the same. That's all the songs are the same mostly. They've not really changed that much. They've stylized it, and like you said, the biggest real change is Johnny Depp's vocal changes. But with musicals, that happens all the time.
Okay.
People just different roles come in. You have to change it for the voice.
Okay.
So yeah.
So let me talk a bit about Tim Burton, because he's had an interesting film career, and this was kind of in the middle of when people considered him a good director.
This actually, I would say that this is kind of when he started his downfall.
Well,
this came out, and he was starting to make bad movies. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory came out a couple of years
I like
before
that movie.
this.
Okay, I'll defend it.
It doesn't matter if you like it; it's still a bad movie.
No, okay, shush. Okay, but anyway, but speaking of which, I think it's interesting because I watched the opening credits of Sweeney Todd, and I was reminded of the opening credits of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because they're pretty damn similar.
I don't like the opening credits to this film. Pretty much because it doesn't hold up now. It's
the CGI doesn't hold up. I think it's cool. I think it's
kind of wasted. The rest of it is the rest of the film is pretty much practical effects. They don't use CGI at any other part. It's just those opening credits. So it's just kind of
I like the blood. I like the blood in it.
I mean, I like what they were trying to achieve.
No, I mean in general,
I would rather have a chorus singing, telling you what is going to happen, and the actual how the musical is wrote instead of those visuals at the beginning. So it's kind of a little bit off kilter at the beginning, but then the movie starts.
I think I liked it.
I'm gonna actually let you walk through the movie, because if I walk through the movie, I'm gonna find myself being very prejudiced, because I know the musical as well, so I know these characters in and out.
So essentially, so you want me to plot summarize again, or just explain?
No, just walk through what you kind of liked about the movie. I think for this, I'm gonna really struggle to separate the movie and the musical, because like I said, I've seen this musical 25 times. I've been in it myself. I've seen the film enough times as well. I know pretty much all the music. It's just something that I love. So it's going to be difficult for me to kind of criticize and maybe establish what this movie actually is as a movie, apart from the musical.
Okay, so what I got out of first watching this film, it's a very Tim Burton film. It has all the checklists of Tim Burton's style and tropes that you've seen. The dark, moody atmosphere, the angsty characters, Johnny Depp, Helen Bonham Carter. There's no Danny Elfman, because this is obviously an established score, but still pretty much all of Tim Burton's established tropes. And I think at this point people were kind of seeing the ropes of it, but I still think it works here. Now, Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, as the years gone on, their careers have kind of hit a downfall, and especially people have gone tired of the whole Tim Burton, Johnny Depp thing. People are just tired of Johnny Depp at this point. But I think for this performance, I think his performance in this film was good. there are some moments where I didn't feel like I felt like he could have played more towards like the anger and the madness, but then there are other moments where I think, oh, he like gets the character. I think you feel for him. You definitely feel for Sweeney Todd, even though he's still like at the end of the day a psychopath and a serial killer, but you still feel for him, like especially like when he's with Judge Turbine or whatever. Yeah. Like you really want to kill him. Like that the first Pretty Women. Like, I wanted him to just slice his throat. I was admittedly annoyed when that fucking guy came in like, hey, sweetie! And like, get out, like, goddamn.
Anthony.
Like, you really do. Yeah, Anthony.
Anthony was actually the part that I played when I played it.
You were that annoying bitch.
Yeah. It was a while ago now. It was like 6 years ago, so my voice has changed. I can't actually sing any of the songs anymore, unfortunately. But anyway, going back to Johnny Depp, for me, I would say that this is probably his last great performance that he's done. I don't think he's really hit anything. I can't think of any film that he's done since 2007 that was actually good at all. Like, in his performance, in anything. Like, what has he done? Like, Alice in Wonderland? That was bad. I suppose Pirates of the Caribbean, but that's just him cashing in on a really bad impersonation.
And the first one was before this film.
The Rum Diary, that was terrible. What else has he
Mordecai.
been in? Yeah, terrible. Lone Ranger, terrible. Transcendence, terrible.
Yeah, well, so enough bashing on Johnny Depp. We know he's like, and he's also kind of a shitty human being, but beside the point.
Yes, well.
There's two parts of the film that confuse me a bit.
Okay.
And they're relatively minor points, but I still got confused by them. One was Miss Lovett's character. Now, I knew what she was, but I didn't understand what her prior relationship was to Sweeney Todd and to like his wife. So I didn't understand what their prior relationship was.
Okay,
like why?
So, she was actually the landlord. She owned the pie shop. She's always been at that pie shop. In the actual musical, she's a lot older. And this is one of the things that I'm not so keen on about the film. Everything is aged down. In the actual musical, they're in their 50s, 60s, kind of. That's the age that they're in. And it just doesn't quite work as well if you've got someone from Hollywood that looks younger than what they are. I know Johnny Depp is probably at that time when he filmed that was about the right age, but he looks a lot younger. He doesn't have like wrinkles on his face, and Mrs. Lovett is supposed to be fat as well. She's supposed to be like really fat and plump. And again, Helena Bonham Carter.
She's plump, but she's not like.
Yeah, well, I think she plays the role really well, but she just doesn't look the part, I guess. Because of the makeup, I don't know, but that's Tim Burton.
I think the makeup looks good though. I think like there are certain moments where you can tell like they're like almost decrepit, like almost dead because of how white they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you like Tim Burton films, you're gonna like this, and you're not gonna be bothered by that. I like old Tim Burton, so Edward Scissorhands and things like that. But then even with that, you've got weird, wacky makeup.
I think it works. I didn't have that much of an issue with it.
Yeah, I know. I can get by with it. I'm fine with it. I know that people have had a big issue with Mrs. Lovett in this film.
As someone who's like unfamiliar with the source material, I had no problems with the casting. Oh, there's also one moment that also bothered me, but it was just like literally like a minor line. So in the song where Miss Lovett's talking about how, the scene where like I forgot, it was like she's talking about how she would love to like settle down with Sweeney Todd and they're like at the beach and stuff like that. Yep. There's a line where she mentions like listening to or watching the English channel, and I was kind of confused about that. I wasn't sure whether that was related to the time period at all because it.
Yeah, no, the English Channel is a body of sea between England and France.
Oh, I thought it was like I thought it was like a TV show, channel or something.
Basically, she wants to go down to the coast at Dover. I think that's what she said. Dover is the link between Calais and Calais is France, so it's the English Channel. That's the body of water that ships pass through. That's a cultural thing. I can kind of forgive that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was a minor thing. That didn't bother me. So let me just talk a bit about the characters and the performances, because I think we've talked about Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, but
the other characters. So like
Alan Rickman is an incredible Judge Turman. You hate this guy's guts, like from the get. Like one of his first scenes, he's hanging a little kid, and it turns out he didn't do anything. Like you just hate the guy from square one. And Alan Rickman is just deliciously despicable, like a perverted, disgusting.
He plays the best bad guys that you love. He really does. Alan Rickman in himself is was an amazing actor. Like
rest in peace, Scott.
Anything that he was in, it's always like, even Love Actually, he was great in that, and that was an arse of a movie. Anything that he does, he just grabs hold of and just goes with it. The first time I watched this movie, I remember thinking, oh, Alan Rickman can't sing, and Timothy Spall can't sing, and then I watched it, and then they still can't really sing. They kind of they speak their way through it, but that actually works quite well with how they are playing the characters. Timothy Spall, he's very good at being the sniveling kind of...
Yeah, he was Wormtail.
Well, yeah, obviously. So, like, he plays that role really well, and for him to be Beadle, like, it changes it up from how I have ever seen it on the West End. As well, again, I'm linking it back to the West End. Because usually Beadle is kind of like a strong muscle character. He's usually a lot taller than Turpin. But the way that it's Timothy Spall did it, he's a sniveling, like really conniving butler kind of thing. That's essentially what he is.
Let's talk a bit about some of the more minor characters. I know how much Womble likes child actors, so I was curious on what you thought of...
Toby.
What's his name? Tobias?
Toby,
yeah.
That's... I don't know who... I don't know who it's played by.
He's played by Ed Sanders, who I don't think has done much.
You had to look that up, didn't you?
No.
So Toby... I thought that this was fine. Like, as far as... For me, I'm not too bothered by this. Like, usually when you do this, again, on the West End, or when you do it in theatre, you get an older girl to play the boy lead, especially with the long hair, because it's very rare to find boys with long hair. And in the actual play, it's not a wig, it's their actual hair, kind of.
I think that works, though, considering, like, the guy he was working for was a con artist, that's... I thought that was
it's cool. Actually part of the film that I like over the play. Like which is weird because I love the musical. I do like that aspect to it. I think his performance was fine. I didn't like the ending because it changes it slightly, very very slightly, because in the end Toby goes insane. Like, he's supposed to be absolutely insane. But when he's leaning over him, I think this was more of a director's choice. It looked like Toby had taken control and was in power. But because he realized that he's eating the pie and he is eating people, he goes insane. Like, he properly goes insane, and he is carted off away to the insane asylum.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that... I got that he probably was changed after the whole thing. Like, he definitely...
Well, he does become a murderer, but, I think they kind of gloss over that they've turned this child
I like
into
the ending, but
nutter,
I like the ending of the film, but I thought he had more of a revenge angle over that. But still, I think it still conveys similar, like, the cycle of revenge kind of thing. I think it still works.
Actually, I always conveniently forget in the Tim Burton version that Toby kills Sweeney. I always, look back and think, oh, it's just Sweeney kneeling over Lucy. But it's not. It actually does end as the musical ends. Because that's how it ends. It kind of carries on a little bit more. After you get the final credits, there is a scene where he is taken away by the police and he's dragged off the stage and everyone leaves, and then they all come back on, they sing the reprise. Ballad of Benjamin Barker. So, it, in ways, prefer... I don't know, it's just, it's complicated, but it is interesting that they do that.
I did find the whole, the scenes where Toby and Miss Lovett, he wants to protect her and stuff. I found that kind of weird. At first, I'll be honest, I had sort of a weird, love thing with Toby for Miss Lovett. I'm not sure if that was the context in the musical.
What, you mean, do you mean that Toby loved Mrs. Lovett?
Well, just with the scene where, like, he's trying, he's talking about how he's going to protect her, and he's, like, concerned for, like, her with, like, Sweeney Todd, and stuff like that.
Yes.
That scene?
He kind of loves Mrs. Lovett because, pretty much because Mrs. Lovett took him in. Like, she was only ever kind to Toby. Like, really kind.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas his previous master beat him, whipped him. He was afraid of him. So he wants to look after Mrs. Lovett.
Okay. So, yeah, I will admit, I saw a bit of a romantic thing at first, because I found it... I thought it was, like, kind of like how Miss Lovett had a thing for... Sweeney that wasn't reciprocated. No, that's what I was getting.
His love for Mrs. Lovett is more like a son and a daughter kind of thing. That's the relationship that they have. It's a mother and a daughter.
I did feel bad for like Toby because like essentially Miss Lovett locked him in there and like Sweeney was planning on killing him twice.
Well, effectively she did, and still didn't.
I do give the film credit for making us feel for these characters, like for Sweeney Todd, for Miss Lovett, even though they do horrible things, and it's obvious they're doing horrible things, but you still care for them. Like, it's still kind of sad when Miss Lovett kind of burns to death, even though she was kind of manipulating Sweeney Todd.
I'm never sad by that moment. I'm only ever saddened by, like, in the ending, it's Sweeney's story, or Benjamin Barker's story. It's right at the end, when he's finally gotten revenge, but to get that revenge, he had to kill his life. He had to kill his wife, and nearly very much killed his daughter. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I will be honest, I thought he was going to kill her, or accidentally kill her.
Yeah. Did he do that in the musical?
It's always the moment when you're like, oh my god, no, he's doing this. Through revenge, he's actually destroyed what he's loved. And
I do think that the beggar being the wife was a great twist. I only got it literally when she said, oh, you look familiar, or something like that. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And then, I connected the dots.
It's really a great twist, and it's one of the twists, I think, when I first saw it, that just absolutely fooled me. And when you see it on the West End, or if you do ever get to see it in the theatre, you have this woman who's singing about, would you like a little bit of muff, dear? Yes, dear. That sort of thing, and like really hamming it up as a prostitute. And then you get that contrast between Lucy, because it's the same actress, and you know it's the same actress because it's in the program, but you still don't realise it. Like, you don't realise that they're the same person.
I think that works better for the movie, because I didn't, in the back of my head, I wasn't thinking, oh, they're the same actress. Like, I'll be honest, because, like, they do a good job of concealing her face.
Well,
and, like, the contrast...
But, I mean, you have the program in front of you, and it's very common that an actor or an actress will play two parts. It's very, very
I know
common.
that. I just think, but the movie, they don't make it obvious, so I didn't notice that they looked pretty similar. I didn't get that connection.
Well, they never do on the stage either. Like, it works the exact same on the stage. Because you're also really far away, so you never get the close-ups that you get of her. So the way that they disguise Lucy is... the first time you see her in the film, I believe, is when Anthony is looking up for Joanna and is just about to go into the first reprise of Joanna.
Yeah.
No, it's the first version of Joanna.
No.
It's not the reprise, is it?
It's like the first time he's there.
So the first time he sees it, she comes up, and you get a close-up of her, but you never actually see her face. It's very hidden in the bonnet, and then the next time is kind of like when she sees the smoke, fire, which is on fire.
Yeah, it's farther away from the camera.
Yeah, and again, that's another close-up, but there's always shadow and shapes all over her. So that's how they got round it. And it's not until right at the end where you're like, oh my god, that's Lucy.
So we've been talking a bit about this movie. My personal opinion, I did like it. I think it is a good movie. I like Tim Burton's direction shines through in this movie. Just some beautiful, dreary sceneries. One of my favorite scenes has got to be, I forgot the song title, but it is, the song I was talking about before, like, how she's basically saying she wants to settle down with him, and there's like it's a contrast from everything else in the film. Like, the film is bright for once, instead of the dark, dreary, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, that whole scene, that whole musical number, probably one of my favorite moments, because not only is it a contrast from everything else in the film, but in general, it's just, like, some great shots, and especially that end where, like, at first she's sitting at the beach, and then the camera moves over their heads and switches back to, like, the slightly more dreary, like picnic area. That was a great transition. It was, like, some beautiful... like shots and stuff.
Well, yeah, no, that is very visually attractive because I like the contrasting colours. So whenever they're in the present with Sweeney, they have like a very dull, grey, dark atmosphere, and then whenever they go into the past or the dream world, like by the sea, when she sings by the sea, it's very vivid, strong, bright colours, and it brings all the colours out. And I personally think it looks amazing, and that is kind of what Tim Burton was always good at.
I think he's a great visual director. Yes. I don't think he's made a film that is bad visually.
Since this, I suppose Frankenweenie wasn't too bad, but I was going to say since this, I haven't been too pleased with a lot of his films, and before that, a lot of his films have been okay, like Planet of the Apes or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or other stuff. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I just like the way that he moves the colours and makes everything look really, really kind of attractive and yet dull at the same time. It's something that only he can kind of envision. Yeah, exactly. It worked, like, the Tim Burton style works with this source material, and I think they mesh really well. It's not always perfect, but I do think, like, it is a great movie. I think the performances are great, the direction is great, the music it's fucking Stephen Sondheim. Like, for the most part, you're gonna get a hit with that. Yeah. And, yeah, so anything else? I'll be honest, I was open about it, and I didn't really have that much of an issue with it. I think most, for what the characters that you're supposed to empathize with, you empathize with. The characters you're supposed to hate, you fucking hate. And yeah. Yeah. So it does a good job. It does do a good job, and it holds up to the musical. Like I said before, I do prefer the musical, but that's because I love this musical, you know. But this is a really great testament to it, and it is really well done. It just brings everything out really well.
That's it for Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. I got that right this time. Yeah. And I knew. Yeah, so we're
Sweeney Street.
Shut up. So we're almost done with musicals. Now it's my turn to give the final pick of the theme. Now, looking over the great musicals of the 2000s, we have Moulin Rouge, Chicago, Dreamgirls, Hairspray, High School Musicals 2 and 3.
No, they're not great.
And I'm not picking any of them. Like these are the typical great musicals that you think of when you think of 2000s musicals. I'm not picking that. I'm not picking any of that. I'm not picking the typical, 2000s big Oscar-winning, Golden Globe-winning hit. I'm picking something that's very near and dear to my heart.
Get on with it!
Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I let you do a fucking monologue in the beginning. You're letting me have this. So, you know what happens when you take music from your favorite artists, songwriters, bands, and you take all these unrelated songs and put it into a musical? That's called a jukebox musical. One of my favorite bands of all time got that jukebox treatment, and that's the movie we're going to be watching today. Julie Taymor's 2007 take on the Beatles' music in Across the Universe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, wait, Womble, do you know anything about the Beatles?
I know everything about the Beatles.
Yeah. I know you're British, but I wasn't going to, assume.
Yeah, no, I have pretty much all their albums, so...
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Beatles. I've almost listened to every single song of theirs. Like, the Beatles was a kind of recent thing for me. I kind of got into them during my teen years. But once I really looked at their music, I was hooked. Like, goddamn, I was hooked. Now, I'm not sure how they would do with a, like, jukebox musical treatment. I've seen some clips of the film. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting film. So, now's your time to check out Across the Universe. And let's see if it's good or not. To close off the themes of musicals and yada yada yada.
I am he as you are, she as we are the...
We are all together.
Okay.
Goo goo gajoob.
Goo goo gajoob.
Yeah, what? No, it's fucking gibberish. Like, are we really being accurate with that?
See you later, guys.